So I had an opportunity to go to the Philippines. And I went with a delegation of other engineers from NC State to look for opportunities for our students to go to the Philippines to study, work, intern, and find ways to have an impact on some of the world's biggest challenges. When I got there, I was introduced to some things that I had only heard about before. There are 100 million people in the Philippines. Of those, a third live in poverty. In downtown Manila, where this slum is located, a third of the populace lives in slums of this type. We went there not only to visit the 3 Filipino universities that we visited, but also to visit a nonprofit called Gawad Kalinga. Gawad Kalinga was started by Filipinos for the purpose of helping to eradicate poverty in the Philippines. And so Gawad Kalinga are the ones that took us on a tour of these areas. The goal, or the way that GK goes about dealing with poverty in the Philippines, is to engage with the populace. And so when we were walking through the slums, we also had an opportunity to engage with the populace. The day that we walked through this particular slum was wash day. And so I asked this young lady as she was doing her laundry if it was okay if I took her picture. She thought that was probably the most funny thing she had heard all day and said, sure, go ahead. I don't know why you want to, but sure, no problem. GK engages with the people who are living in these slums, to turn this into this. And they use all of the knowledge that they can bring to the table. Engineering knowledge, there's a lot of civil engineering and how these buildings are constructed. There's a lot of environmental engineering, how clean water gets in there. There's electrical engineering and how we get electricity in there. All of these buildings have houses in them that are about 6 feet by 8 feet for each individual family. They have indoor plumbing, they have electricity, they have kitchens. The people who live in the slums, and I don't know if you can see, looking down this corridor, you can see an area that has not yet been renovated. Because what GK does is go into the area, find a group of people that are interested in making a change. And the people have to agree. You don't just come in from the outside and say, we're going to knock down your houses and build you something nice. How do you feel about that? They have to agree that this is something that they're interested in doing. And when they do it, they take down a bit of the neighborhood at a time, build new buildings. The people that live in the part that's being knocked down live with the people that are in the remaining part until everybody's houses are built. Everybody puts in their own sweat equity. You don't work on your own house. You work on your neighbor's houses, so that there's never a situation where somebody says, well, you worked harder on his house or on your house than you did on my house, that kind of thing. GK has a model of how to go in and make these kinds of changes that's based on a 3-tiered approach. This is something that I had never thought about before I went in there. When we travel to another country, we frequently go in with a very Western overlay of looking at things. I went in with a very engineering overlay of looking at things, which is to say, here's a problem. Let me figure out what's needed to solve this problem. Let me understand this problem, and then let's fix the problem. That's what I'm trained to do as an engineer, right? GK has a similar approach. They use something that we teach in engineering called root cause analysis. So you don't just go in and see the problem as you visualize it, but you understand what are the root causes. So the root causes of poverty are different depending on where you go in the world. In the Philippines, the root causes begin with the idea that the people that are living in these slums have a tendency to develop a mentality that comes from a severe lack of basic needs. If you don't have a secure place to live, a secure source of food, a secure source of community, you don't have dignity. So the beginning of the GK model is to actually provide folks with security and provide them with the beginnings of a sense of community in order to help them develop dignity. But again, remember, The essence is not, I'm going to come in from outside and fix you. The essence is, I want to engage with you. I want to partner with you to cause these things to happen. The next tier of the model is to begin, after dignity begins to be restored, to address the lack of confidence, the lack of the ability of folks to engage with others outside their own communities. You think about it. If you've been living in a slum your entire life, a situation where you don't own the land that you live on, you don't own the house that you live in, you're a squatter. You don't have the confidence to try to engage with external authorities. So after that's regularized, then GK works with the folks to help empower the communities, to develop local leaders, to help them find and engage with partners. Whether those partners are angel investors, like for example, Crest sponsored one of the village. They call it the Smile Village. After that, you begin to develop some empowerment in the community, then connect them to opportunity. Find ways to engage their untapped potential. Because after all, don't we believe that everybody in the world has potential? We have to help sometimes for them to realize it themselves and help them tap it. GK has built this all on sort of a platform of what they call values formation, beginning to help the individual value themselves, help them value their family, help them value their community, and ultimately in the Philippines to help them value their country. They work with the people. And the people are a pleasure to work with. Meet this gentleman here. When I was in the slum, he invited me into his house. He lived in this house with 8 people, 6 feet by 8 feet. Now, he had lived in the community long enough to save up enough money to actually install a second floor on his house. So he had 2 6 feet by 8 foot spaces, so that he and his wife and their 6 children had a bedroom upstairs and the kitchen, living, work, bathroom downstairs. This is Dr. Marion McCord of North Carolina State University. This is the village headman for that village that was partially constructed, that we've been seeing pictures of. He was telling us about, his name is Willie, he was telling us about how he had been nominated by acclaim to be the head person in this village. He didn't want to do it. He fought it. But his neighbors, his family, and people he ultimately, that he began not knowing, but of course ultimately knew well, pushed him into becoming the head person in this village. The way this village began was that Willie coordinated an effort with the population to raise enough money for them to buy the land that their village stood on. Once they had bought the land, GK came in and helped provide materials, labor, and funding to do the renovation project that you saw pictures of earlier. Willie gave me one of my favorite quotes that I got while I was on this journey. He said, if you look around, what you see is impossible, but we specialize in doing the impossible around here. Wish we could say that a little bit more, don't you? This is a picture of the head group of a second village that we visited. This village was led by a group of 5 women. And let me tell you what, it was pretty clear to me that nobody in that village was going to set a foot out of line, because these 5 women had everybody lined up and working just exactly, a bunch of mamas, that's how it works. One of the things I like about this picture is that in this picture, not only do you see the 5 women, you also see some residents, you see the NC State, or part of the NC State delegation, and you also see 2 angel investors who gave millions of dollars to help support these villages. Can you tell which ones are which? You can probably pick us out, the white people. But other than that, not so much. GK also places a great emphasis on education, because education to get out of poverty is something that we all know is important. Every village has its own preschool, and we were honored by the opportunity to visit the preschool in the Smile Village and see them practicing for their graduation that was to take place in the following week. So we got to see their song, their dance and hear their song. We got an opportunity to meet each one of the children individually. It's the only time I cried on the trip, because I started thinking about my own children who are quite old, just like you guys that are sitting here. GK also places an emphasis on entrepreneurship. So some of the people that live in the villages that were previously slums have full-time work. I met a school teacher who is a high school teacher who had been working full-time the whole time that she'd been living in the slum. She got paid 400 pesos a day. They're about 40 pesos to the US dollar. It cost her 200 pesos a day to commute to her job, which explains why she was living where she was living. For those that do not work full-time, GK looks for opportunities to engage them in entrepreneurial activities. Whether those entrepreneurial activities ultimately arise out of the ideas of investors or whether they arise from the ideas of the residents. You see here 2 of the residents who had an idea to have a bicycle factory, and they build bicycles out of bamboo. You may not know it, but bamboo has a greater strength to weight ratio than graphite does. So bamboo bikes are actually probably pretty good for winning the Tour de France, if you ask me. As an engineer, of course, I looked at this a little carefully. The joints are laminated and wrapped and then laminated with abaca fiber. It's another fiber that's native to the Philippines, which is one of the strongest natural fibers that you can find. So all of the materials came from local sources. All of the ideas came out of the brains of the gentleman. The funding to start up the enterprise came from angel investors. Some additional startup enterprises take the form of something that they call GKnomics. This is an organization which is run by 5 investors that engages folks who have the ability to produce handicrafts in the production of those handicrafts and then helps them market them. So, for example, in Raleigh, North Carolina, we have a store called 10,000 Villages. That's one of the targets that they have for marketing the things that the folks in the villages create. The things that, and I must say, I did some serious shopping when I was here, but the things that they create are very interesting from a number of standpoints. There were a lot of wooden sculptures here. These wooden sculptures come from a GK village in the south of the Philippines, where every year they have another typhoon. The typhoon inundates their village every year and fills it with driftwood, all kinds of tropical woods. When the people come back from having evacuated the village, they collect up the driftwood and they carve it, they make sculptures out of it, and they sell those sculptures here. So the very thing that took at your house provides your livelihood for the next year. These are some more of the products, and you can see here they're actually beginning to develop some designs for some shoes that they can market. These are crocheted out of plastic grocery bags of different colors. So this is another opportunity, and I don't know if you happen to notice when I showed you the bike shop picture, behind it was another slum, and there was a man fishing in the creek. He was fishing for this plastic because he can pack it up and sell it. So this is an opportunity to not only use crafting ability, to not only use entrepreneurial ideas, but then to make use of things that actually pollute the local environment to produce handicrafts. Another organization that GK partners with is called Human Nature. And they have a farm about an hour and a half outside of Manila that we visited. And on the farm, there's a village, and the folks are engaged in growing things that are native to the Philippines that can then be used to create products that can be sold around the world. Human Nature is actually trying to compete with the Body Shop in terms of their production and sales. You see some of the products here that are produced from the farm here on the table. These are 2 brand new sports drinks that are using flavors like lemongrass, because lemongrass is native to the Philippines. They also have a whole line of citronella products because citronella is native to the Philippines. They have a line of coffee, and they also have a line of what they call salted eggs. Salted eggs are a native food that people have eaten for a long time in the Philippines. You boil eggs, you then bury them in a combination of termite dirt and salt for 14 days. You dig them up, and then normally you dye them red and sell them if people eat them. They're not terribly nutritious. What GK has done and the farm has done is take those eggs, produce them in the same way. Termite dirt's really easy to find. I found a lot of it when I was there by accident. And they dye the eggs with turmeric and vitamin A, so that now what is a normal food source is much more nutritious. It tastes pretty good, too. I had tasted, of course, while I was there. I also had their chocolate buffalo milk, which is another product that they produce. It was, yeah, it was good, I guess. They produce cheeses, all kinds of cheeses. Where'd they get the idea for producing these? Well, the farm takes in interns from universities around the world, and they had a group of interns from France who gave them the idea of, why not make cheese? So they have a whole range of all kinds of different cheeses. I put on weight while I was visiting the Philippines. I don't know if I should mention that, but it was true. Local handicrafts, all over the place, we found ways in which the first world intersects with the third world. Not just in terms of angel investors and entrepreneurs wanting to come in and engage with the populace, but also in terms of what that engagement produced. This lady who produced the bag that I actually have my computer in over there, who would have thought to produce a computer bag, an iPad cover, an iPod holder? These are first world related products. The intersection between the first world and the third world is producing things that would never have been visualized by either of the parties alone. On the farm, they're building this building using traditional Philippine bamboo construction techniques. The purpose of this building will be to demonstrate alternative energy sources that can be found in the Philippines. They've already got one of their windmills built here. They'll have solar cells, they'll have biofuels, all kinds of things. Again, a way in which the first world meets the third world. Isn't that interesting? So what's the point? What is this other than an opportunity for me to show you my slides because my family are tired of looking at them? There are a lot of things that we can take from the GK model that apply to solving problems of poverty around the world. The root causes of poverty are not the same, but the approach to finding those root causes, the approach to engaging with the local folks to solve those problems are the same. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter if you're in Manila in the Philippines, or if you're in Kenya, or if you're in downtown New York City. To solve the problems of poverty, it's going to take partnership. It's going to take the courage to listen to each other. And ultimately, the solution will not be legitimate unless everybody is at the table. Thank you.